Hi everybody, good morning. I was just thinking, the one thing we're good at is learning from past mistakes. So this is our second act. We were on, where was that, in the US AWE conference, and we were getting on stage and we stumbled into a bunch of water, right, bottles of water, and we crashed. So now we're already on stage to make sure that this does not happen. So I'm Benny, founder and CEO of Inception. Inception is a learning XR platform, probably one of the largest in the world. We're focusing on two areas. One is healthcare, training, particularly nurses, and the other, which I will be discussing here, is K-12 kids education with focus on literacy and ESL, English as a second language. And that's going to be the focus of this discussion here.
Thanks, Benny. It was me that fell over the bottle of water, so no water around this time, which is a relief. So we're going to kick off, if you don't mind, early in the morning while you're bright, bushy-tailed. We're going to start with a brief history lesson. So if we go back in time, education looked something like this. Back to the 1800s, rows and rows of desks, teacher front of class, delivering instruction, delivering learning, and the students absorbing it all. We fast forward to the 1970s, which is my era, by the way, and very little's changed, except perhaps the fashion. But that's fine, because by 2022, everything's changed, right? Except, of course, it hasn't. And we still operate in this space where, in the most part, technology hasn't really revolutionized learning. Kids still in rows of desks, teachers still front of class. So what do we do to try and change that? And why is that the case? So there might be some clues in the level of investment. So we look around at other spaces, other sectors, other markets that have really been transformed by technology. The clue might be in the level of investment. So you look at something like banking, where there's been serious investment in technology, versus education sector, not so much. Small clue there. The other thing that's really strange about this is that everywhere else in our lives is so directly impacted by digital and technology. So we live in this really switched on, fully immersive space in our personal lives. Kids are on gadgets, they're gaming, they're doing all of this really cool stuff. Teachers in their personal lives are doing so much on their phones, they're working with tech, they're working with digital. And yet, kids and teachers go to school and suddenly it's back to sitting in rows, standing in front of the class, delivering content. So there's something weird going on there. Very recent memory, not necessarily good memory, is Zoom, the global pandemic. Did Zoom deliver that revolution that we're seeking? Did it hell? I think many of us know the hard way how tough that was. And all we really used technology for was to replicate that same traditional setup of, instead of desks in rows, faces and video screens in rows as people delivered content. And we know the fallout from that. You only have to look at the headlines and the damage done with the, the lost learning and the fall in grades. So there's a social and economic imperative to this also. In our work at Oxford, but also through studies with the National Literacy Trust, we know that being able to read and to be able to develop good literacy skills is probably the biggest predictor of a child's life chances. It impacts not just their literacy levels, their learning outcomes, their career prospects, their earning, their housing, and even life expectancy. So there is this growing need that we've got to address the gap in learning, and we've got to overcome some of the social barriers that exist that hold many children back from achieving their potential. Benny, what are we going to do about this?
It's exactly what we ask ourselves. We said, kids today get access to two categories of content. They get access to content at school, which is obviously productive and educational and based on strong pedagogic principles, but it's really boring and uninspiring. It's 2D, even if it's digital, post-COVID, it's still 2D. And then they get this content in their consumer lives, games, videos, which are super engaging, but very unproductive, killing zombies or just, watching silly videos. So we ask, what if we didn't have to choose? What if we can take the best of both worlds? What would it look like? So this is what we call the Inception language. This is our format. It's combining these 4 elements. Obviously, we're in an XR conference, so XR plays a very big part in this, but it's not just about XR, because not everything has to be XR. It has to be interactive, because with interactives, you lean forward, and you're much more engaged. You need to have access to the best content in the world, educational content in the world, both from big publishers and education organizations, but also from popular kids brands that kids really get excited about. And it has to have a gamification element. So with these 4 elements, what could it look like? Before we get there, let's talk a little bit about XR and why XR sounds like a strange question to ask in this conference. We're all great believers in XR, and we think that everything has to be XR. But actually, the barrier when you deal with education is higher because you need to prove efficacy. You need to prove that there's clear learning outcomes. It's not enough that kids spend more time and that they're more engaged and that they have more fun. We need to show that it really works. And spoiler, I will show you some data points in the next few slides that prove that XR is actually working great for this. Why? Obviously, kids need to be engaged to learn. Everybody needs to be engaged to learn. Different people learn in different ways. We all have these 4 areas in the brain. I know there's some healthcare specialists in the crowd, so I'm not going to embarrass myself and talk too much about that. But we all have the experiential system and the experiential, and we have emotional, and we have behavioral, and we have cognitive system, and it works differently for different people. The good news is that wherever group you fit into, XR works well for you because you get to experience, you get to listen, you get to read, and the outcomes are proven. It's a great way to explain very complicated concepts and to promote independent learning. So a little bit about us. This is how we started the journey. We created the largest AR reading app for children, 3 to 9. It's called Bookful. It's got hundreds of books now, over 500 books from all the largest book publisher, Oxford, Pinger Random House, Hachette, pretty much everyone, and then some of the largest kids brands, Hasbro, Mattel, Peppa Pig, they're all there. It's a combination of reference and fiction books. We're bringing these books to life, and we're creating a host of activities that gets the child excited about reading and engages them more. So this is what it looks like. This is our format for augmented reading. So there are no physical books. It's all digital. You place the book in front of you. This is a 3D version, but in a minute you'll see what it looks like in AR. This should have sound, actually. I don't know if you can turn the sound up. Books can be read to you by a professional narrator, or you can read it yourself. This is when you switch to AR, and here the book is laid on your desk, on your carpet. You can walk around it,
and the mice struggled with
and
their
you really
baskets.
feel like you're part of the story.
Eventually, Boris caught up with them all.
This is super
Poor
powerful
Miss
for
Cluck
kids. Again,
blew
it's
her
not
whistle.
just engaging and
This
fun,
really won't do, she said.
but it really
We must stay
improves
together.
their love to reading,
Then
their
Boris
comprehension.
he felt.
I've just showed you an example of picture books, but it also works great for reference books. So this is for older kids. We're highlighting different elements within the text. So these are, this is targeted at 9 to 12. And then different activations come out of the book. Some are more fun, some are more educational. You can see why kids would be much more engaged and interested and start love reading again, right? It's got sounds, you have filters, you need to complete different tasks and different quests within the book to complete it and move on. Works also great for reference books. Now, every book at our app has a host of activities around it. Helen will show you some of these in the next few slides, but I'll just show you two. This is called Magic Paint. These are the characters of the book. So we took the main characters from every book and we let you paint them. And then you see the way you painted them in 3D, and then you can place them in AR around you. So again, connecting the child to the subject matter of the book proved really, really successful. This is dance, another cool feature. You dance with the characters of the book. This is Smurf. So really what we're doing is we're taking a page, a 2D page, and we're turning it into an interactive museum with some of these reference books. So we've created it for some of the leading encyclopedias. So again, you can learn about earth sciences, you know, in this 2D boring page with, you know, with small fonts, or we can go into this interactive museum and really experience different elements, complete different tasks. And you get rewards. You're the space explorer. You can share it. Your parents can share it with their with the rest of the family. The next things we look at is workbooks. Workbooks are a very important part of early learning. So again, we'll show you some workbook example in the next few slides. But this is an example of prime numbers. So you can learn about prime numbers as I did from this 2D boring page, or you can actually have this little game and try to grab the cars with prime numbers. This is one of our developers in the office. All right, so Bookful is a great success. We have over 1 million users. We have over 100,000 monthly active users. I'm not aware of any AR app that has this number of active users. But most importantly, kids read with this app. They read 17 books a month. They spend 18 minutes in every session. And remember, this is not an app that they're being told to use by the schools. This is something that they or their parents come across, and they decide to start using it, and they get hooked and start reading. So, you know, this is really important for us. It gets great reviews in the stores. We won a bunch of awards, so we're quite proud with Bookful. But as I said before, with education, we had to take it an extra step and say, does this really create a learning uplift? Is it really, is it something that we can measure and prove scientifically? So we went out for this research. It's a randomized, controlled study. We took two groups of kids. One was using Bookful for a few months. One was using another productive app, so we can compare apples to apples. It was ran by a very famous professor for cognitive neurobiology, and she was astonished by the results. So we've shown very clear uplifts in comprehension, in expression, but most importantly in the love of reading. So the parents that were in the Bookful group said that their kids are much more engaged and read more, not just, you know, with Bookful, but also with print books, which was great. Because we're not trying to replace print books. We're trying to replace some of the digital time. So from Bookful, we expanded into a family of apps. We've created mini apps that were focused on more focused learning outcomes. Some fun apps. We created some branded apps with Smurfs and other. And then we started working with partners, primarily telcos. For telcos, this is actually quite interesting. So telcos desperately need to find a use case for 5G. They poured billions into 5G. No one really understands why they need 5G as consumers. You know, video streaming works well. So XR is one of the best use cases. So we've partnered with all these telcos, primarily AT&T in the US. So if you're AT&T 5G subscribers, you get Bookful free for 6 months. But also in Southeast Asia with all these large telcos, most importantly LG in Korea, KDDI in Japan, China Telecom in China. They are making Bookful available in their own language, so it's a bilingual app. All the books are available in both English and in the local language with some customized activities. So in Korea, they wanted a grandparent feature, so you can not just have the book read to you by a narrator or read it yourself, but you can also have a grandparent or a parent read the book and then the child would hear it in the parent voice. In China, they wanted to be able to show off how their kids read in English. So there's a video that shows their kids reading within the app and then sending it on WeChat. So it's a customized version of Bookful. This is how it's being sold on in Korean TV by LG.
One of the biggest was Argentinosaurus. This
longer than 3 buses.
우리 집은 신비한 영어 도서관.
This
나의
is all
영어
over Korean TV
선생님은
and
이렇게 살아 움직여요.
the Bookful is now available in 6
3D AI로
languages.
생생하게 전달되는 24개 세계 유명 출판사 100여
Also
권의 도서.
interactive TV, web, but primarily of course mobile AR on phones and tablets.
원어민의 정확한 발음으로
Goodbye, Flamingos.
책과 더 가까워지는 게임 활동.
Spare ball.
볼.
우리 아이 상상력과 인지력, 따뜻한 감성까지 크게 키우는
All right, so what's next? We wanted to take it to the next level when we have proven this learning efficacy and learning uplift, and we said, let's partner with some of the world's largest or leading educator and create an app that's going to be focused on very clear educational outcomes, and we'll take the best pedagogical experience and know-how. So we reached out to Oxford.
And that's where we come in. So it's probably worth saying a little bit more about Oxford University Press. Some of you, I'm sure, know of the university. We're actually a department of the University of Oxford, and we are the biggest university press in the world. We're this mighty education global brand, and more than that, we've been around since the 1480s. It's quite a long time when you're hanging out with lots of startups. So through that time, we've built up research and expertise and really understand how people learn. We're actively researching lots of impact projects, etc. So, but more than that, as you could probably tell from the points I was making before, we're a mission-driven organisation. And what this means in practice is that we really believe in the transformative powers of education on people's lives and how this can really enable humans to achieve their potential. So why did we work with Inception? So our collaboration started, as Benny's already suggested, by taking some of our lovely children's books that were in print and putting them into Bookful and magically turning them into these delightful AR immersive reading experiences, which is brilliant and we love it and we couldn't be more excited to be in Bookful. However, we also know that digital reading is really important. There are many, many children, thousands of children, who have never owned a single book, will not have a single book at home, and will have very limited access to books. And we know that access to books and the ability to read go hand in hand. So we know that digital reading has an important part to play, even in situations of economic hardship. Many homes will have a mobile phone or a tablet device. So we know that digital can overcome some social barriers. The other things we know from research is that kids who adore reading in print and online just start reading more. And those kids that think they can't stand reading and will declare, I don't like reading, it's boring, the moment they're reading in digital, they love it and they actually start to read. So there's some really important considerations about reading in digital formats as well as print. So here's an example of one of our titles, Dive, which is in Bookful. So we'll take a quick look at this and we're building towards sharing what's coming next.
Welcome to the diving expedition. In this interactive experience, you can navigate the submarine to discover the amazing worlds under the sea. Each level will showcase different...
Submarine reached 50 feet. The sunlit zone.
So the students interacting, they're exploring, they're in the driving seat, and they're, in this instance, literally immersed in the reading.
It's a 360 experience. Wherever you look, something is going on.
So it puts the learner in the driving seat of being able to explore, and they're learning as they go and they're interacting with the space. So Bookful was the beginning. What's coming next? Well, we'd already agreed, we had many ideas, but we decided we needed to focus, so we talked about how we could expand our collaboration. We decided that we wanted to do something really targeted and target a particular age group and particular audiences so we can address some of the market needs that are there and the needs for these learners. And more than that, we know that there's something exciting about bringing together clever technology and a trusted, credible education mighty brand. And the result we're going to have a look at in a sec is that we have developed this gorgeous little app, and we're going to take a sneak peek, and you are the very first people to get any sight of this.
I think it's a more important announcement than Pico Enterprise yesterday. Personally.
Obviously. So just before I share a sneak peek with you, I want to talk a bit about why we've chosen to focus on pre-K or preschool and early years. In our research, we've identified that thousands and thousands of children start school without even the basics. So they're missing vocabulary, key vocabulary to access their learning or even digest what instructors and teachers are saying to them. So there's a real need for children to develop those early foundation skills. Early experiences are so important. We all see how quickly kids go from a newborn baby into being in school and the amount of change that happens. Learning starts from the minute these children are born, so we need to be on top of that and giving children experiences that helps them to develop. And then the other thing, which you could see in all of the dancing and things, how interactive this is. This isn't a solo activity. This isn't using digital as a babysitter. It's actually involving parents and carers, because it's vital we know that a learner has that interaction and someone's interested in what they're doing and taking notice. So for us, this is where I think the best of pedagogy and play and interactivity merge together. We've built this experience around the UK national curriculum, the early years foundation stage, and also the Oxford International Early Years curriculum. Every single aspect of the design, the logos, the colour palettes, looking at how little hands interact on devices has been taken into account, because this has got to be age appropriate and right for the stage that a child's at. It's got to be fun. You've already seen a sneak peek at some of the fun that's in there. We know that that's a great motivator for people to want to learn. And progress tracking, what we mean by that is, on the one hand, the kids want that sense of accomplishment. You know, it's nothing like watching a little child learn a new skill and they practice over and over. And it's so rewarding when they grasp it and they're excited. But equally, we know parents and carers worry and they want a little bit of reassurance. Is my child doing okay? Are they where they should be for their age and stage? So progress is really important. We knew that that was a central component.
Ta-da!
Tra-la. So here it is. This is Little Oxford. I'll just hit play and I think it should do a little demo. Tune will be in your head for the rest of the day, I promise. So the key thing to note is that the whole experience guides the learner across the curriculum and through the path. So through that you can see all of the assets in there, connect to all the different activities and interactivity. This is an example of the workbook, and again the child's interacting directly with the device and they get that instant gratification. And here's the accomplishment. They graduate, they're ready to start school, and they earn badges as they go. It will be Oxford branded because we're that mighty education brand, and it's going to be coming really soon. So what's the future? What's next?
You're asking me. Okay. So it's always tempting in a conference like this to think, go full, futuristic and think, metrics, neo-style. You'll download content into kids' brains and they'll know Kung Fu. In education, we always like to think of what would learning about ancient Rome look like.
In their backgrounds illustrates the Roman
We're going to be walking around ancient Rome with kids from all over the world, and rather than reading about it, actually being there and participating. I'm here to tell you, as you already know, that this will take several years. We're nowhere near there. Where devices are behind. They're just getting to a place in enterprise where they make sense. So it'll take a couple of more years for consumers. But then when you think about education, with education there are gatekeepers that are bureaucratic, they're slow, and there's all these operational and challenges you need to think about. And there's the efficacy. It's actually to show that this is actually helping. So our view is that we need to look at it as an evolution rather than a revolution. And what does that mean? It means that we all need to work together as stakeholders. You need publishers, you need developers like ourselves, you need schools, and you need government support, as well as, of course, hardware. That we need to utilize existing technologies. So it does not make any sense that kids in school still learn the same way they did many, many years ago. And we need to speak the Inception language, so have all these different ingredients to really make an impact. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you both so much.